Hi, welcome back to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a topic that is critical for anyone on the path of recovery, and that is the importance of avoiding the first drink. So this is something that came up in my morning meeting. A lot of times my topics do come from things that either were the main topic of my morning meeting or things that just I had that came up throughout the day that I really wanted to expand on. So for me, that first drink starts this uncontrollable race to poison myself. That's the best way that I can describe it. It's the spark that lights this compulsion. And once it's started, it is impossible to extinguish. And I had to learn in my own time and through my own struggles that the only thing that I could control was what was directly at my fingertips. So I can't control anything beyond my fingertips. It's another way of saying we can't control people, places, and things. But what this also is that first drink, not picking up the drink. That lack of control beyond my fingertips later applies to a lot of things that come up as I work the steps. So I remember a time when my cravings for alcohol were so freaking strong after a night of drinking with my friends. They'd kick in as soon as I opened my eyes in the morning. Even if I didn't even want to get up, I would be laying there and I'm just thinking about needing to put that alcohol in my body. So while others most often were swearing off drinking for the day or for the week until the next weekend, or some even would swear off drinking for a month just to prove that they weren't an alcoholic. I was never going to do that. I never did do that. And I would even joke, like in the mornings when people were getting up and they're getting their coffee or getting something to eat, I would go to the refrigerator and grab a beer or a glass of wine or something. And I would say, oh, I gotta bite the snake that bit me, and try to humorously make an excuse for my behavior. But deep down, I didn't even have a clue back then that this uncontrollable craving had taken root. Like years before I even tried to stop, before I even had any idea that there was a problem. I thought that I was just like everybody else. I thought that it was okay. I thought I was just fun. I thought that I just knew how to have a good time more, but that's not what was happening. And one memory that I have is going to DC 101 Kegs and Eggs. And I went a couple years in a row, and it was what I wanted to be a tradition, that I embraced wholeheartedly on St. Patrick's Day. And it was the one time of year that I could start drinking at the crack of dawn and everybody else was drinking too. And we went a couple years, some friends and I, and then we decided, I don't know why, I guess it was just a lot. So we decided, well, we can have our own kegs and eggs. So we started doing it at my friend's house instead. And again, it was just, it was an excuse for me to be able to drink right when I got up, and everybody else would be drinking too. But in reality, it was just another way for me to normalize the grip that alcohol had on my life. And I could say, maybe say to myself, okay, yeah, see, you're just like everybody else. Everybody else is doing this too. But everybody else was doing it once a year. And that wasn't the case for me. I was doing it once a week, starting, in the morning, on a Saturday. And then that years later, grew into me doing it every single day. So towards the end of my alcoholism, I was drinking 24/7. Not everybody's like that. Not everybody who gets sober and is an alcoholic drinks 24/7, but that is my story. That's what happened with me. So, and then another memory I have is after going to detox for the first time. If you recall from my previous episodes, I went twice to a detox facility. And after my first detox, I was only sober for about 2 months. And I realized tonight that I think the first time I drank after going to detox was going to my friend's house. And I was going to spend the night there. And I think when I first went in, I looked in the refrigerator to see if she had any beer. I didn't pick any up. I just looked to see if she had any. Or wine is probably what I really wanted. But she had beer in there. And I guess I had convinced myself that if I only have a few beers, it would be fine. And I ended up drinking all of the beers in the house. And I remember vividly not being able to get drunk. And I know my friend felt like she had enabled me, but it wasn't her fault. I have a disease and there was no stopping me. If I hadn't have drunk those beers, I would have been utterly miserable. I wouldn't have been able to even pay attention to what was going on. I was just like hyper focused on those beers in the refrigerator. And that's the power that this addiction held over me. I mean, it just consumed me. I remember sitting in her house trying to figure out when I first got there how I was going to ask for a beer. Like, she knew that I had gone to detox, but I don't know. I guess I thought it was just okay to do that. And I wasn't listening to anything that she was saying until I figured out how to ask her for one. And I just went ahead and did. I just went ahead and said, do you mind if I have one of these? And the thought of alcohol was just screaming at me until I was able to get one of those beers out of there. And sure enough, I had one and that just, I couldn't stop. I drank all of her beers. She didn't even drink that night. Buying alcohol for me was always an exercise in ensuring that I'd never run out. So my fear of running dry was like a nightmare that was hanging over me at all times. what was once enough for several days soon became barely enough for a day and a half. I used to buy the box of wine. The Vella box of wine was my favorite. And it used to last me a whole week, until it only lasted half a week. And then it was really, every other day I had to go get a box. It was just terrible. I used to think that alcohol was helping me with my social anxiety, numbing my emotional struggles and fears. I thought that when I was sad about something, if I drank alcohol, it it was like a blanket. It was like wrapping a blanket around me. But I remember just crying and crying and crying and crying constantly. Every night I was just crying. And, but yet I didn't link that to the alcohol. I thought it was me. I thought that I needed the alcohol because something was wrong with me. And the alcohol would also stop me from shaking, and it would stop my panic attacks. I didn't have shaking, panic attacks, anxiety. I didn't have these things when I was drinking. But the cruel irony is that it was actually causing all of these issues, and I just didn't see it. Like building up resistance to antibiotics, I needed more. I needed stronger doses for the alcohol to have any effect. And it makes me think about waking up on business trips. And I mean, talk about freaking hell. It was my own little hell that I was in, and I created it. Being away from home made me feel like I was on some sort of vacation. And so, without my box of wine, I drank more potent wine. And because at home I was putting ice in my boxed wine, so it was kind of watered down. I don't really know comparably because I was drinking so much of it that it really, I guess I was trying, on business trips, I was drinking almost the same amount of bottled wine as I was this watered down boxed wine. And I would just get to the point where I was throwing up in my hotel room or wherever it was that I was on my business trip. And with no food in my body, when I woke up in the morning, I could barely stand up. I was lucky if I even woke up to my alarm, which sometimes I didn't. And yes, I got in trouble for that. Sometimes I would have to sit on the shower floor because I just couldn't do anything more than that. I would literally crawl into the bathroom shower, turn the water on, and like kneel in the shower because I couldn't stand up because I didn't have any nutrients in my body. I had just been drinking wine since I got off work the night before. And I was faint, I was dehydrated, and I was running on only a couple hours of sleep, facing an entire day ahead of me with no alcohol and needing to be productive in some way. It was hell. And it was, I don't even know how else to articulate it. It was a living hell. And yet I couldn't stop. I didn't understand what was causing that to happen. You'd think it was obvious, but I didn't know why I kept finding myself in that same position. I just can't believe that I'm here today, sober. For me, to drink is to die. That is my reality that I've come to understand. The trigger, the first drink, is what sets off the chain reaction of compulsion. And sometimes I do catch myself still, after over 7 years, romancing the drink and letting nostalgic thoughts about alcohol creep in. I can talk on this episode about all of these examples of how terrible it was, but yet I can, if I let myself, find so many examples of how great it was. And I've come to realize that it's dangerous for me to even entertain these thoughts. And this realization led me to understand that I have the power to choose my thoughts, and by extension, my emotions. If I want to feel happy, then I think about something that makes me smile. It's not like it doesn't take work to train myself to do that, but I truly believe only because I can make myself stop thinking about alcohol. I just choose it. I know that it is life and death if I think of alcohol. So if it starts coming into my mind, I chop it off. I just chop that thought off and I throw it out. Because I just, it's dangerous for me to do that. So it's not always simple, but this approach has been incredibly effective for me more often than not. And the most important part about that for me is very similar to the first drink. It's also the first thought. So if I have this, as dangerous as the first drink is for me, the first thought is just as dangerous, If I allow myself to entertain these thoughts, that could lead to that first drink. So it's almost like I'm heading it off at the pass. I'm heading off that first drink at the pass. And I'm going to stop even any thoughts of alcohol. So I hope sharing a bit of my story helps you to see the importance of that first decision, the decision not to pick up the first drink. It's a choice that can lead me down a vastly different path in my life, and I have to make that choice every morning. So for those of you listeners who are in recovery, think about when you wake up in the morning, are you making that choice? I am. When I open my eyes, I'm making that decision to not think about alcohol, to not drink today, to stay sober today. And I remember when I first entered into sobriety, I'd wake up in the morning and it would take a couple beats for me to remember that I'm an alcoholic. But when I did, I'd kind of sink, I'd kind of deflate into that thought. It didn't feel good to remember that I was an alcoholic. And the same thing happened when I left my job because of my visual impairment and my head pain. I'd open my eyes and it would again take a couple beats and I'd remember, oh yeah, I can't see right. That's what I would say to myself. Oh yeah, I can't see right. Um, Never mind the head pain. But and I would deflate when I would think about that. Oh yeah, I don't have a job. Oh yeah, I can't do anything. It came in lots in different kinds of self-talk, but it was all going down the same road. I would just deflate. And in time, as I continue to wake up and remind myself, that changes to not deflating, but inflating instead. It takes time. It takes suiting up and showing up and doing the next right thing. And no matter what, whether it feels good or not, turning off my wanter and doing. So turning off my wanter and just engaging in what's around me, learning new hobbies um, and practicing these things that I can do today that before my stroke I wouldn't necessarily find much interest in. But now I practice them. And with me, the more I practice something, the better I get at it, the more I enjoy it. So that's really what I'm trying to do. And now when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have a job. I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna sew today. I'm gonna bake some bread today. I gotta call the neuro-ophthalmologist again today. I've got to not print off, I have to get my medical records ready to send to my health insurance, So I've got these things to do. And I'm really starting to puff up a little when I wake up in the morning because I've got stuff. I'm building my life the way that it is. I'm meeting life where it is, and I'm trying to grow. Try to grow from what I've got. It's much like what I talked about yesterday, focusing on abundance rather than scarcity. So that's what I've got for you today. And I want to thank you for tuning in. Your support and your shared experiences mean the world to me. So keep please reaching out to me. Remember that I may be the one talking, but we're all here together. And each of us is walking our own path, but we're united in our recovery journeys towards healing. And we're all just humans that are being. So if you have any thoughts or stories you'd like to share with me, please reach out to me at rachel@recoverydailypodcast.com or through the contact form on my website. So take care, everyone, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.